All right. So this was not legal because it's a different size. But if you want to, grab this array, I mean, I don't have two numbers, there's one number, but you could grab this array and put it in here. So it will be like one dimension, right? So that'd be like sub-0, and that will grab the first array. The second will be the sub-1 will grab this in there. If you want to do that also, it's the same thing, except you grab that from a different array, and you grab a different internal array to another array. So again, once you declare array sizes, they are fixed. You can't change the size anymore, right? You can remove data, but you cannot change it. You cannot resize it. Unlike Visual Basic. Visual Basic allows you to resize your array for whatever reason, but you can't. If you rename an array and you can preserve the data, or you don't preserve the data, you can resize it, set it to a different size. Okay, so here you can't. If you want to generate a dynamic size array, or if you want to resize an array, then you want to use the advanced feature in array called the ArrayList. Okay, this is the ArrayList, or sometimes it's just the list. Okay, these are objects, or it's a class of ArrayList. Then you can store a list of array of items at various sizes. Still, you are limited to the same type. You can't mix and match the data type, but now you have the ability to resize the array, to remove and add more data to the size. So it grows and shrinks based on how you implement it. So the list is a class that is implemented by the ArrayList. So it's like the parent class of the ArrayList. So when you do like this, ArrayList, you are actually creating an array of the list class. Okay, because I think the list, you cannot instantiate object. The list is like an abstract class or an interface. Okay, so you say ArrayList, and you put the angle brackets in here. Now, as you can see, it's different from what we do here, right? You put like the data type double, and you put a square brackets. Here, you put angle brackets because it's a class. And then inside here, you put the data type. For example, if we say ArrayList of string, you put the string in here. Okay? And then you put the array here, just say my list. And you would say new ArrayList, and just put that bracket there. You can see there's no size. You don't specify the size. I think by default, the system will initialize it to a size of 10. If you have more than that, it will keep growing automatically for you. Because this is a class, you have to import the ArrayList class. So hover that, and then just import the ArrayList, and then now you should be good to go. Actually, over here, you can put that in there. Sorry, what? Yeah. Mm-hmm. So import, you tell that ArrayList. Right. Okay, so you put the new ArrayList, the angle bracket, followed by the pair paren, because again, it's a constructor, so you need to call the constructor. Notice you don't have to specify the size over here again, right? Usually in the old version, like Java 5, you have to put the string and then string again there. But now on Java 7, you don't have to specify that anymore, so it's optional. You still need the brackets there. Okay, so it's already specified here the size of string, and that means that it's ArrayList. If you remember in Visual Basic, it's just like the list box. Because it's an object, it's a class, then you cannot say list my list of 0 equals something, right? I can't do that. Okay, so to assign data to the list, you would use then the add method. So it will be mylist.add, and then inside here it's a function, so you pass in the parameter of the word apple. Again, it's a string, so you want to pass in a string of data. So that's how you add data to your list. If you want to remove, again, mylist.remove, and you remove the list out of that list. So that array list will shrink or grow based on the number of elements or data you add to that list. Okay, it's managed by the JVM automatically, so you don't have to worry about the size. You can still get the size out of this. So we'll add a few more, our favorite fruits and stuff. Okay, do one more. So I added 3 items to my list. Now, to get the size of this array list, you will have to use the .size function. So it's not length anymore, it will be .size, right? So if you say like int length of this array will be mylist.size, and that will give you the size. In this case, it would be 3. Okay, so size of 3. So we have add to add. If you want to remove, then you just say remove. For example, if I have my list.remove, I can remove the index, or you can remove the actual object itself. I can say remove the position of 0, so that will remove apple, right? So before we remove the apple, let's go up there between the length and the remove. Let's print this out. So how you print this from the list is to use what's called a get function, which is a property of this mylist. So I would say things like, you just want to print one item at a time. You say print len here mylist.get. As you can see, you specify the index number to get that list. So if I put 0, I'm printing apple out. Okay, and then you print apple out, and let's copy this and put it down here after we remove the apple. And then if I print it again, this should no longer be apple, it should be banana, because I removed the index 0 out of it. And it's automatically resize it, re-index everything for you. Okay, pretty cool. Now let's say this is true. So let's run it. So I have the first one. The first statement is to print the first item, which is apple. The apple here. After that, I removed it from the list. Apple is now gone. I print again the index of 0 is now replaced by banana. So I get banana back out. So by looking at this, you see that, oh, I can do the .get index. And then you can print the whole list using a loop, right? You loop to the index. So same thing as the other one, you go for int of I, 0, instead of 0. And then to the size of that list, so when I is less than the len, which is calculated that the length will be mylist.size, and then I plus plus. We'll put a bracket here, and then we'll wrap that sys out inside that for loop, and we'll replace the 0 with the I. And now we can print the entire list. Okay, and I'll copy the for loop and we'll print it again down here. So we'll see that now we should have only 2 items here, whereas up here we have 3 items. And just so that we can tell the difference, I'm going to put another sys out here, and we'll print just the dotted line, so we know that that's the second loop. Okay, so you run, and here is our list, before and after. Oh, I have an out of bounds exception because I'm using the len, and the len is no longer true down here, right? The second part here is only 2, but I put 3 because up here the size is initially was 3, and I use the same variable name, so that's why I have the error here. So you have the out of bounds exception. But so to fix that, really we'll get the mylist.size, which is probably more correct. Instead of less than len, we'll say less than mylist.size, and that will correctly get the size for us. Okay, and then you run it again, you should have no problem now. So here's our list of 3 items, and then the list of the 2 items left. Okay, so if you are thinking about creating a list of arrays of items this way, then use the array list. It's a collection of data, and the size shrinks and grows based on you want to add more or delete from the list. Whereas an array, you can't grow or can't resize it, right? You're fixed. That's one way to loop through this array, is using the get method here. That the array list has a built-in part of another class that actually allows you to iterate through the list in a different method here, a different way. Okay, it's called an iterator. Again, it's not going to be an exam, but I'll just show that you know anyway. That's what it is. If you might encounter in your programming exercises later on. So there is a class called Iterator. It's a class, so you again specify the size, and then the type will be a string. So I'm trying to iterate, I'm going to loop through my list. So that list, whatever that list is you're trying to loop through, to iterate through, you have to specify the type here. If it's a list of integer, then this would be integer here. If it's a class, a list of double, you put double there, right? If it's an object, you put object here, whatever the object is. And so again, the iterator is a class, so you want to also import the iterator. Just mouse over that, and I might have mistyped it. Did I mistype that one? I thought I did not. Yeah, I don't think I have to import anything. Maybe it's not complete. Okay, so iterator a string, and you set to the list you want to iterate. So in this case, it will be my list, and the dot iterator again. So you call the iterator function. So again, this is like the type, and then we have to put a variable name here. Okay, so kind of same as how we declare our list. So we have the iterator list here, followed by a variable name. It's a temp variable name, and then you iterate through that array list. So here I would just say the list. And I thought I had to done. So here, yeah, we have to import. Surprised they didn't ask me before that, but okay. So you set a well, let's import the Iterator class. Make sure you put the one that says the Java util and not the swing Java X. So the middle one. And if you go to the import at the very top, you see they have the Java util ArrayList, Java util Iterator, right? And the list is going to grow if you add more stuff to the utility class. So if you want to just import everything, then you could just put the star here. And then when you do that, you don't have to worry about this part, because everything under the util will be imported automatically for you. Okay. So the star is a wildcard that will pull all the classes under the utility. So now I have the list, which is pointed to the my list. And then now you do a while loop. You say while the list dot has next, it will check with the next element if there is one. If it has it, then you're going to print get it, right? Usually if it's an empty list, you start from the 0, and then you look at the list, is there one or not? If there is, then get the next. It's almost like reading from the line for the input. So here I can say system out, print, and then get the list from the list dot next. Again, these are functions built into the Iterator class. So now I will have the same output as the other one. Whereas the for loop up here, I have to declare the index to get that index. Here, I just print the entire list starting from the 0 item on the list all the way to the end. So this one I can't control the position, right? It's almost like the for each loop in the array. If you want to control it, you have to find another variable, declare another variable to track the index number, and you can track it. But for now, if you just do that, then you should get the same output as the other one. I didn't put the divider, but let's just put another divider there right before that iterator. So we have the same output as the for loop. Okay. You'll see that if you go into advanced Java programming, the iterator is just actually the fastest. It's the faster method in the for loop. It does much faster because it's part of the class of the array list, and then this is also very handy when you iterate through a list of items this way. Okay. But I mean, either way will get you the data. Except this one, again, you have less control of what's where you're at. This one, you control the number or the location of that list. Okay. And you can replace it too, right? If you go like my list dot, there's a replace of the index, you replace it with a new value. Instead of pushing it to the list, you can specify a location to replace the value.